republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome.
Good morning.
All are present. Item 1.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the January 10th meeting.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Warren, second by Commissioner Arnold, to approve the minutes of the January 10th meeting. Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
So carried. Item 2.
Make a motion to approve item number 2 is listed on the agenda.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Warren, second by Commissioner Arnold, approve item 2 on the agenda to ratify and approve the cash disbursements and electronic payments. Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Item 3.
Make a motion to approve item number 3 is listed on the agenda.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Warren, second by Commissioner Arnold, approve item 3 on the agenda, to ratify and approve the following seminar and travel requests for payments. Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Item number 4.
Make a motion to approve item number 4 is listed on the agenda.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Warren, second by Commissioner Arnold, to approve item 4 on the agenda, accept with regret the resignation of Eric Wilson, Sergeant, for the recommendation of Warden Shelf. Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Item 5.
Make a motion to approve item number 5 is listed on the agenda.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Warren, second by Commissioner Arnold, to approve item 5 on the agenda to sign the purchase of service agreement between Susquehanna County Services for Children and Youth and Youth Purchase House Incorporated of Erie, PA. Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, item 6.
Make a motion to approve item number 6 is listed on the agenda.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Warren, second by Commissioner Arnold, to approve item 6 on the agenda to accept bids for a Toyota 8FGU 25 lift truck for the Susquehanna County Recycling Center. Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Item 7.
Make a motion to approve item number 7 is listed on the agenda.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Warren, second by Commissioner Arnold, to approve item 7, to approve the submission of a letter of commitment to the Central Bradford Progress Authority authorizing $175,000 of county funds to be committed as a match for potential Appalachian Region Commission grant to fund a rural broadband study to improve internet connectivity in Susquehanna County. Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Public comment.
Yes, my name is Barbara Scott, Commissioners. I think I've met you all at one point or another. And many of us are here about the Fair District's resolutions currently in our House General Assembly, our Pennsylvania General Assembly. We have made some folders for you, which I would like to give you with information about why we are here. And the bills are calling for a constitutional amendment for to appoint a commission, an independent commission, in terms of redistricting to prevent gerrymandering, which is so prevalent in our state currently. As many of you know, every time they talk about gerrymandering, which is a lot these days, they bring up Pennsylvania and how it is so gerrymandered that the very foundation of our representative democracy is at stake because people aren't represented fairly. And so the bipartisan Senate bill, which now has, as of yesterday, I think 31 sponsors, and Republicans and Democrats, and the bipartisan House bill 722, which also has bipartisan support, and just yesterday gained two I think it was yesterday or the day before, gained 2 Republican representatives. So we're just here to hope that you will consider a resolution in support of these very important legislative efforts to bring back our democracy, our representative democracy, to make it fair. You can see on the card that I pasted on top of the folder, we are District 10, the blue. And it's bigger than the state of Connecticut in terms of geography. And this is breaking up communities. It's just not fair to people that are left out. It's also not fair to people that are included. With our current technology, data can be mined so that politicians are it's against it's in their interest to draw districts that support them, which is understandable. That's why we should get them out of this situation that we're in now. So that, because with the internet and everything and all the data that's available, they can choose, well, this person doesn't vote, let's get them into my district, or let's not get them into my district, and they're choosing their voters rather than the voters choosing them. And it's very upsetting. And I noticed that you just approved some money for several of you to go to the County Commissioners Association of Pennsylvania, and their Resolution 8 that they passed this past August. The proposed resolution asserts that the current redistricting system often results in gerrymandered districts, and proposes that the law's district boundary standards be amended in a way that would result in districts that are more cohesive and more reflective of a community of interest. And that's what we're about. And that's what we're here to discuss. And I think Ed wanted to add to what I'm saying.
Morning, Commissioners. Ed Ziegler from Auburn Township. My wife Amber is along with me, as well as our neighbor Gary Morgan. And I'm happy to say this is the first Commissioners meeting we've ever attended. And we took this occasion to bring up and support Barbara what she's saying, because we feel so strongly that the issue of fair districts is so important to the people of Susquehanna County. If you look closely at the card that Barbara has pasted on your folder, you'll see that at the southern end of the 10th Congressional District, there is only one county separating us from the Maryland border. So the 10th District stretches from the New York border almost to Maryland. To us, that is insane. We feel like our voice is being diluted because of the way the district is shaped to favor one party over another. And we feel this legislation that would be supported by the resolution that we're hoping the Commissioners would adopt would make the process more fair. We realize there is never going to be a perfect system where everybody is going to go away happy. But what we have now is obviously not working. It's harming our democracy and harming the people of Susquehanna County. So we really hope that the Commissioners will take the lead here in the county to get the support going in Susquehanna County to show our elected officials on the state level, our House members, our Senate members, that we want this done. We need to make the system more fair so that the people of Susquehanna County are represented more fairly. And in light of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court decision of just a few days ago, where the Supreme Court, as you know, ordered the congressional district redrawn, that's a step forward, but it's still not the best way to make this permanent. We want a fair and independent commission where we can, as much as possible, take the politics out of drawing districts. And that same process would apply to the state level districts as well, the boundaries for those. So it's not just the congressional districts, it's the state, at the state Senate level and the state representative level too, that we are concerned about, that everything is drawn fairly and as evenly and representing the people as much as possible. So we're hoping that the Commissioners will take a hard look at this resolution. It's a little more in detail than what the County Commissioners Association adopted last August, as Barbara said, but we feel it's the right thing for the Commissioners to do, take the lead, and move Susquehanna County forward. Thank you.
And John would like to address the issue of the reason that the urgency, basically.
I'm John Hunt.
How you doing, John?
Hi. I'm Barbara's husband, and we live in Liberty. We're urging you to sign the Fair Districts resolution that's before you now to put pressure on the legislature who've
introduced SB 22 and House Bill 722. I have copies of both bills here. It's been in their hands, referred to government for the past year, and haven't done anything with it. They say it's pending pending the court case that was just resolved at the beginning of this week. And this is, if we can get your signatures and other county commissioner signatures, as well as other municipalities, it puts pressure on the legislature to start acting. The urgency is that this legislation that's being proposed is a constitutional amendment. A constitutional amendment takes 2 years to begin and come to fruition. If we get SB 722 passed and the House Bill, SB 22 and House Bill 722 passed this year.
By June 30th.
By June 30th, before the end of this term. Then we can ask the legislators to do it again. We have to ask the legislators to do it again early in the next session. Once they get it done in the next session, pass the bills once again, then they refer it to the voters on the November 2020 ballot. And then that 2020 is key because that's the census. And the court case that was just resolved today, or Monday, well, the issue opens up all over again when we have to redistrict as a result of the 2020 census.
Because Pennsylvania's slated to lose another legislator, so that there would have to be at least one, maybe 2. And you would be joining, now it's up to 14 other counties. I don't have the 14th listed in your folder, but some of them in northeastern Pennsylvania. I think it's pulled out which municipalities and which counties in northeastern Pennsylvania have decided to pass resolutions, including 2 municipalities in Susquehanna County. And does somebody want to speak? Somebody from Clifford or Harry?
Yeah,
So
my name is Mava Rope. My husband Rich and I live in Clifford Township, and we had the resolution unanimously passed in August at our Clifford Township meeting, and my husband was there on election day, this past election day in November, and we only supplied him with 5 of these sheets.
It's 50.
And 50 people signed for fair districts in Clifford in an hour and a half. And these were Democrats and Republicans. And Mary Ann Opecco and I were in Honesdale that snowy November day, and we got people to sign petitions there also. So it is something that people in Pennsylvania are really in favor of. We don't want to be the poster child for gerrymandering on the CBS Sunday Morning News anymore. We want to take the lead again. Pennsylvania should be taking the lead again. It set a precedent on Monday by this court case in the Supreme Court. And we really think it's very, very important to move this forward. Thank you. I don't know if you want these.
Yeah, excuse me, I'm her husband, Rich, from Clifford.
You're not even sitting with her.
Yeah, with her all day.
I mean, we're all sitting together, you're way over here away from her.
But now you made me lose my train of thought. I forgot what it is.
Well, we can come back to it. Listen, there is no question when you look at this or you look at what's going on, it's been a joke for a long time.
Yeah.
You know,
both sides of the aisle.
we have, you know, I have a lot of concerns. I know my fellow commissioners have a lot of concerns about, you know, the way lines are drawn, who's drawing the lines. I'm kind of real interested to see how this is going to unfold the next week. now that the Supreme Court has put a date on it for the legislators
That was what I
and
was
said
gonna
that,
say.
you know, you've got until this time to do it. If not, we're gonna do it for you.
Right, but that,
So-
excuse me, that was what I was gonna say, and then I won't interrupt you again. Because this train of thought doesn't, leaves the station quite often here. But that only addressed the congressional districts.
Oh, listen, I agree with it. Listen, we are sitting in a county that has no representation of somebody living in this county. Now, I have to go on and say that we had the opportunity to have somebody from this county at the state level. The voters decided not to do that. They wanted somebody from a different county. So, you know, the voters spoke then and said, obviously it doesn't matter to us that we have people from our county willing to step up. We don't want to support them. And now we have a person, I believe, in Susquehanna now that has stepped up to run for a seat in Washington. And we'll see how well the taxpayers of this county support that individual. But I agree, you know, we've always been a county that gets very little. And we've struggled, we fight tooth and nail with Harrisburg and Washington to try and get our due. You know, we've got grants we've applied for, we've been successful with some. We just had one we applied for last year for our new public service center that we're trying to build, $2 million. And we're fighting with legislators and the governor to get that money. And, you know, everybody keeps saying, well, we're looking at it. Well, here just last month, you know, they walk into Lackawanna County and give them $1 million to refurbish the Globe store. You know, we have a hard time getting any type of representation back to this county. We fight nonstop to try and get everything that we get. Any grant money we get, we're lucky to get, but it takes a lot of hard work from a lot of people to get it. Our representation, you know, when we look at this, why shouldn't we have somebody from our county or somebody or counties that surround us to represent us in Washington or represent us in Harrisburg? You know, it makes sense. Why, you know, when you look at this, and even Williamsport, you know, Williamsport's a big city. How do you understand what really goes on in rural Susquehanna County when you're a person from Williamsport and you're sitting there saying, oh, gee, I know what's going on? Well, first of all, we never even see any of it. The only time they come here is when they're running for election, and usually they send one of their flunkies up to see us.
And I might add, Commissioner Hall, that John and I were thinking about going, Congressman Marino had his first public town hall kind of meeting in I don't know how long, and I looked on Google, it would take, and it was Monday night, Martin Luther King Monday night, 2 hours and 20 minutes one way for us to get to the place, and then we'd be coming home, we'd be getting home, you know, late at night. And it's just not representation when the constituents are put in a position, and we've gone to the closest office for Congressman Marino is Lake Ariel, which is an hour and 15 minutes for us, because we live almost into New York. And, you know, this is a burden. And then, you know, and it's just not how your representation should be.
Right.
They should be accessible. And they can't be accessible when it takes 4 hours to get from one end to the other.
Right.
It's a burden for the representative, too.
Well, listen, you know, they accepted the job, did they not?
Well, but they don't.
So
Right.
their job was
But
to
they don't do very well at
Well, listen, we can probably agree on that all day. You know, the job is that their job is to represent the people, and how do you represent the people if you don't get out and see the people and talk to the people? You know, when you hide in your offices or you don't come out, you know, that's a problem. But, you know, the big issue here, and what everybody, you know, needs to fall back and take a look at is, this is all about money and big business. And when I say big business, we're talking about the committees, the Democratic committee, the Republican committee, who's raising the most amount of money, who's making the largest donations to the committees. You know, senators and congressmen, they all have to give so much money to their committees each year for fundraising. It's all big business. That's what this is all. It's all driven big business. You know, I question whether we ever get the representation from anybody, because they get sucked into the black hole of the big business of fundraising, creating money for the parties, creating money for themselves, and once they're in office, the only thing they care about is how do they stay in office.
Exactly.
You know, how do I get the next vote to stay in office to keep ahead? Now, what people need to understand is, you know, there's one thing that threatens these people in office, and that's the mass public saying, we've had enough. Now, listen,
is what we're doing.
we're on the phone all the time to our legislators. And I'm telling you, I'm not saying it falls on deaf ears, but they're not threatened by us in any way possible. They are threatened by you people.
No,
That's
not-
And
not
your
by some of us.
grassroots organizations is what, you know, you just saw the Women's March here last weekend. How many hundreds of thousands of people were there? Those, I'm telling you, those representatives and those legislators see that, and they're paying attention to that. They're saying, oh man, how many votes are there? I got to make sure that I'm greasing the wheel and taking care of some of their needs, or I'm not going to be in office anymore.
But with gerrymandering and the disinterested public, they don't even have to spend a dime.
Well, they do. Excuse me, go ahead.
Yes, hi, my name's Mary Weisman and I live in Liberty Township. I just wanted to say that one of the things about this is that the gerrymandering makes it so that people are at this point not even bothering to run for office because it's so gerrymandered that they know they don't have a chance. And that means that the people who are in office can hide in their offices, can send their flunkies out. They don't have to face us. They don't have to answer our questions, and they don't. And they will tell you to your face, you're not my party, I don't represent you, I represent my constituents. They're supposed to be representing us all. And that, I mean, the gerrymandering and the money is the two things that are totally destroying democracy as we used to know it. Thank you.
Well, and as I was saying, you know, the issue with the people that are in power is their only concern is to stay in power. And how do they stay in power? You know, they stay in power by making sure that they do just enough to keep people happy so they can still get people to, you know, fill in the little box for them.
Certain people happy, because they know they don't have to care about everybody.
Well, sure, you keep the majority, you want the voters happy. You know, who are the voters? You know, that's who they look at. I mean, and they run statistics all the time. And you're a very intelligent woman and you know all this. They run the stats, who's voting, those are the people I need to target. Those are the ones I need to make sure that are getting my message and I'm taking care of them. The ones that are not voting, that are protesting, that don't vote, I'm not worried about them because they don't vote. I'm not worried about the select minority that wants something but doesn't have enough support from everybody else to become a majority. So they've got all those stats. You know, that's what they have all these people in their offices doing, running stats all the time as to, you know, how many people are for this, how many people are for that, and what's going on. But, you know, absolutely right. The problem we have in this country is representation and getting the representation that we have. Now, listen, I have nothing against Jonathan Fritz. I have nothing against Lisa Baker or any of them. You know, they do what they can, but they didn't draw the lines.
No.
And what I kind of think
No, but they have an
is,
opportunity here.
that's right. But what I think is kind of unique, and you know, and as we see what happens the rest of this week and next week, I think the number of sponsors on your bills is probably going to double, triple, because people are going to say, listen, we're in the middle of a mess now. The easiest way for me to bail out is to do this. Now I can wash my hands of it. It's not on me. Anything they try to do, and they know they've got a problem, because if they try to redraw the maps themselves, they got to be approved by the governor. Well, what do you think the governor's going to do? You know, if they draw the maps, he doesn't like.
He just approved it.
What?
He just approved it yesterday.
He just approved it yesterday. So have you seen what the new maps are? Does anybody have them?
No. No, what I'm saying is his voiced his approval for it.
He voiced his approval, they didn't redraw anything.
Right,
But
right,
they didn't redraw
right.
anything.
So when they redraw something, it's got to go to the governor and get passed by the governor before it goes back to the courts and the courts approve it. If the governor doesn't approve it by the deadline, then the courts are going to do it themselves. Now, the Supreme Court's already ruled that this is totally unconstitutional. So I think the strength is in the Supreme Court right now as to they're going to make sure that this is, and let me finish. They're going to make sure this round is going the right way. I'm not saying these bills aren't right. I'm not saying that these bills are wrong. What I'm saying is you know, we need to see what's going to happen this next week as we move forward, but I think you're going to see a lot more sponsors to that, and you're going to see a big change in the next 2 weeks.
Well, but we don't know that for sure, and we're on a deadline here, so that's why we've, this is a permanent solution to this problem where the current situation isn't. I mean, if we don't do this constitutional amendment and we just leave it to having people sue Pennsylvania, because, as the League of Women Voters did, then we're in case after case after case. And rather than, and spending taxpayer monies on these court cases, by the way. So it's cheaper and to me, more representative democracy should be representative. And it's behooves us to, I think, amend our Constitution, and as John said, we have to do this by the 30th to make it really a viable, June 30th to make it a viable thing, because otherwise, you know, it's gonna go on and on
If I
and
may
on.
make a comment, Jim Opeko, I'm from Clifford Township, just outside of Forest City, and talking about the court case and how politics plays into everything. You look at the vote on the Supreme Court for the gerrymandering, it was 5-2. 5 Democrats for, 2 Republicans against. Everything is partisan and politicized. So trying to get gerrymandering so that districts are more fair and open can possibly start taking politics out of a lot of the issues that go on. And by doing that, one of my biggest complaints about particularly our members in Congress and in Senate is it's a jobs program. They're not there to represent us. They're there to collect a pension, get their health care, and have an income for the next 50 years. Now, we spoke with Jonathan Fritz last week, and his comment was, well, you look at the districts the way they are, and how when I say I vote, how he votes is, I look at the people and I look at their options, I'll pick 10 things, if I agree with 6 or 7, then I'll vote for that person regardless of the party. And I said, well, we don't have that option, because the way the districts are drawn, multiple people aren't running. You know, so you get one choice. Well, that's not a choice. You know, so that's why I support, you know, redistricting.
Yeah, I think we've made our point to you that we're in favor of this, and you're giving reasons. And basically what we have come here asking is just that you would add your name to our name, you know, as a representative. I think it carries a little more weight when a community, whether, you know, it's a township or thing, and a county puts their name on the line and says, yeah, we think this is a good idea, it's gotta be
Because
looked
you
at.
represent more than
We-
yourself.
Yeah, because, and.
You
when
are a
we spoke-
governing body.
When we spoke to Mr. Fritz, he put all the blame on holding it up on Mr. Metcalf, he's the head of the committee and he won't let it out of committee. And he's putting all the blame there and saying, there's nothing we could do about it. There is, if we get enough people together, we can force them to get it out of committee, so that at least they can have an open dialogue about it, instead of just the old good old boy network inside the
You provide the
committee.
pressure.
Yeah.
And we're asking you to add your name to ours.
And what I will tell you, I understand your point of view, but I will tell you, I've been here 6 years now, and in 6 years I've not had one legislator sit in this room.
That's sad.
So when you say that they listen to us and we provide the pressure, I'm telling you that that's a fallacy, because they don't really care about us. And they don't come to see us, they don't have that dialogue with us. And what happens is what they listen to is they listen to you. So I'm not saying I'm against doing this, I gotta read it over, because here's the quandary that I look at. As you so elegantly put it, everything is political. Who's picking the group? Who are they? And whose payroll
Well,
are they?
there's information on that.
Well, that's what I said, I gotta read it over.
It is-
Because I don't wanna go from the pan to the fire. Now, if you brought me a map today and said, here's the new map we wanna support, well, now I got something I can get behind and say, I can do this right now.
That isn't the point here. We want a constitutional amendment.
I
We want the-
understand.
And we want, we haven't heard from anyone else, Commissioner Hall. I would like to hear what Commissioner Arnold, Commissioner
Anyone
Warren,
you
if
wanna
they're
say anything,
willing to, or interested in saying anything, or?
I have said before that I am in favor of it, and it has been on the agenda and taken off, so.
And I'm still trying to learn about it, and I think this is a great showing today, and I thank you all for coming out. This is great, and I think Commissioner Hall is right about the grassroots movement. when we look at things that happen, it seems like the grassroots is what really gets stuff done. I do have questions, like with, I see like the little tiny bit of yellow, like that's down in the Philadelphia, there's hundreds of thousands of people, so it's based on the population?
Well, each district has at least 750, each congressional district of which those are, has to have at least 750, roughly 750,000 people. And so these districts, as you can see, they could get to 750,000 people without, you know, that. And that is the crux of our problem. But the solution Fair Districts Pennsylvania believes is this constitutional amendment to make it fair representation, so that our legislators are not picking their voters, but the voters are picking the legislators. And so that the legislators have to listen to all, CBS morning show, we unfortunately don't have a television. What was it?
Sunday morning,
CBS.
CBS Sunday morning.
But I did watch it on YouTube, and it was very interesting because they had a story on gerrymandering and the problems with it. And of course, they highlighted Pennsylvanians because we are one of the more gerrymandered. But I was taken with a Republican congressman in Iowa, wasn't he? And who said, you know, he's in a district that is, he has to, and he's a Tea Party Republican, but he's all for, he's anti-gerrymandering because he's in his district, which is, might even be predominantly Democratic, I'm not sure, but it's divided between Republicans, Independents, and Democrats. And he says, I have to hear what all three of these constituent parties are saying. I have to listen to them. In so many of these gerrymandered districts, the representative does not have to listen to everyone because they know they don't need their votes. They only need their party's votes, whether it's Republican or Democrat, because they're gerrymandering on both sides, of course. So we're trying to prevent this. We're trying to, because this is the bedrock of the foundation of our representative democracy in the United States of America, and it's being knocked out from under us, and it's just so upsetting. And I agree with you, Commissioner Hall, that campaign finance reform is the next step. I mean, we must work on that too. And together, these two things, these two problems need solutions, and to bring back our democracy to be representative of as many people as possible.
I don't think there's anybody here that doesn't agree that we need fair districts. You know, I guess the real question is, how do we get there, and how do we do it? And you know, we'll read this information over and get back. You know, it's how do we protect ourselves that we don't jump from the pan to the fire? That, you know, who's picking and who's controlling and who's on whose payroll and you know.
Right, but to leave it in the courts, I think is a bad idea.
Well, I think the issue right now with the courts, I mean, actually, it could swing the other way. I mean, you know, we know that the way the districts are right now favors the Republicans. You know, so we understand that. You know, it could swing the other way now with the Supreme Court. They could draw it their way. It could swing the other way, and then you know, karma works the other way on them. So
that's why we need the constitutional.
Right.
You know.
So you know, I don't disagree. We need something that where we can get fair representation, especially in this county. You know, and I realize that, you know, Philadelphia is entirely different, and you know, and I've had people from the Lehigh Valley have been here, and I said, listen, I really don't care what happens here. I care what happens in Susquehanna County, because when we needed something in Susquehanna County, I went to Harrisburg and I went to the House of Representatives from Philadelphia area and the surrounding areas down there. They just all blew me off and said, we don't care what you think up there. We're just going to do what's right for our area. So, you know, and that's the mentality, unfortunately, that you get in Harrisburg. And I will tell you that, you know, you're absolutely right. We don't get enough people that run for office. We don't get enough choices. And maybe fair districting is going to be the answer to that. But people also see what goes on in Harrisburg and Washington, they say, this is utter nonsense. Why would you want to get in the middle of that crap down there and put up with this nonsense?
I'm one of those people, yeah.
Because it's so political, and it's not about doing the right thing, it's about the political thing.
Exactly.
And we see that all the time. You know, we look at, you know, the nonsense with getting the budget passed and getting that done. And so what do? Because we're not gonna get the budget passed on time, we're gonna tell the 396 kids we have in 4-H, your program's getting cut because we can't get a budget done. So we use the kids now as a pawn in a game between the adults, because the adults can't do their jobs. And, you know, it's like Washington right now. Listen, there isn't anybody in Washington that should be in Washington after the next election. They should all be gone. You mean to tell me the money you guys just spent and you can't get a budget? When was the last time Washington had a budget? I can't even remember it. Everything's been a continuing resolution. I can't even remember a budget in Washington now. And that is acceptable. We're gonna pay these people all that money to do their jobs. They are not accountable, they don't do their jobs, and we accept it. So as I've told people, stop vote, you know, there are term limits. And the term limits is they're up every 4 to 6 years or 2 years. Don't vote for them again. Vote, get somebody else to run. So, you know, I understand what you're saying, I agree with what you're saying. Need to look this over and see the mechanism behind it.
While these bills, the House and Senate bill, are subject to committee reworking and to debate in the Senate and the House, they do lay out, both bills lay out how the commissioners, the 11 commissioners.
Lay those with me? Thank you.
Would
I'll just
be
say put
chosen.
them off. Oh. Okay.
And also in the fair districts.
Also in the fair districts, yeah, there's a summary.
Materials, there's a
of that.
summary.
So let us read it over.
Yeah, I think we should also tell them.
Well, Bill?
Bill Bain, Liberty Township. I know you know who I am, but John just gave you these, but this is the Senate bill with the cover sheet from the House bill. And I know in talking to Commissioner Hall a month or so ago, one of your concerns was that this committee be made up of a bunch of people from Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Harrisburg.
No, it wouldn't be.
Page 7, lines, what's it say, Gene? Lines 10 through 13, it stipulates that they have to be geographically as well as gender-wise, et cetera.
Because, and when you talk about geographic, that's the other problem we have with this, with representation. When you have, you know, 20 representatives out of the Philadelphia area and one that represents 4 counties in the north,
We'll see, that's not gonna happen.
you know, you don't stand much of a chance of getting things done in Harrisburg for rural Pennsylvania because of the, all the ones from the big cities.
But even though it says they have to be geographically spread across the state, we have to watch, because we can't say, we'll take 2 people from Scranton and 1 from Wilkesboro, and that represents the Northeast.
Although
I mean,
it's not done that way, it's not, currently, the redistricting is not done geographically, so.
Oh, I know
so,
that. I
you know,
know.
I find that argument from the other side a little bit.
I'm just saying that at least they break it down and say,
Right.
we can't have them all from Philly and Pittsburgh and Harrisburg.
Right.
Also, I was involved with Tina Pickett and Sandy Major years ago and changes to Clean and Green. It only took us 5 years to get that through. This can't afford to wait that long.
No,
It can't go on
Not with the
forever.
census coming up.
Right.
2020.
And if you think it would be of any benefit, I know that there are people from fair districts that are willing to come and put a demonstration on, give you the graphs, the whole 9 yards. They can give a presentation to you, it could be open to the public or just to the 3 of you, however many you want. If that is something that you think would help, you know, move this process along, we would be happy to get in contact with them and arrange that for you. Because they're again, I mean, this is what they give a wonderful presentation.
Right. Well, I can read the bills and I can read your information. I'm pretty
Okay, but
good at
I just
understanding
wanna put
the
that out there
politics
for
and
you
everything,
because,
so.
like, you know.
I mean, unless the other 2 want to bring something.
No, I just, no, I have witnessed, I have read all of this. I think this is a great packet, and I look forward to my colleagues educating themselves on this wonderful packet that, and to make a decision based on what's in here.
I have a question about something else if we're done with this. I was just wondering
Before
about,
you start, can I ask,
uh,
what you're talking about is an old saw for we Americans, which is taxation without representation, and that's virtually what we've got here.
No,
We've got one of the largest counties in this state.
Yep.
We're not being represented adequately.
Listen, I will stand on top of that mountain with you and scream that as loud as we can.
Please do that,
So,
please. Sorry.
no, no problem, I didn't want to, I was just curious about the broadband funding. So you got an application there
mhm.
to do that. What kind of time period are we talking before?
Well, it's not gonna be fixed next week.
I know it's not gonna, but are we talking 5 years, 2 years?
I think that, you know, it'll take probably about a year to get the study done. Then if the study comes back favorable, then it will take probably about another year to engineer it. And then, so I would say probably between the 2 to 5 year period is when it would be done. And that should be about the point when your internet service doesn't work at all, so. Because that is a huge problem, you know, part of the problem, and so you understand what this is about. It's about running dark fiber through the county. And basically what it would do is it would take existing poles that are either owned by Penelec or Claverack or whoever, and getting a partnership with them to run the dark fiber. The dark fiber would be basically a huge fiber optic line, which probably has like about 296 pairs of optics in it. So it would give you the speed and the connectivity. And basically what that line would do is it would run the main roads like Route 11, Route 29, 706, you know, usually the 2-digit roads, sometimes the 3-digit roads. And basically what it would do, it would allow then the end users like Adams or Frontier or the rest of them that provide the internet service to the home to hook off of that and run the last mile to the house. And then we would get the speed. The problem that everybody has right now is they can't get the speed because there's not a big enough trunk going through the counties to get the speed. And as more people use video streaming and everything else, it takes up more bandwidth, and it just keeps bogging the system down more and more and more. So it's trying to get that main trunk line through the counties. Bradford County's about a year ahead of us right now. They started their study last year, and they've got their study pretty much in place now, and are working on trying to get cooperative agreements with the electric companies and the phone companies and everything else.
And I take it, since it said the Appalachian Regional, that this is looking for some federal money more than state money?
It looks for both, is what it's doing. You know, the Appalachian, and I have to look and see which one that one's for right now, whether it's state or federal. But, you know, they look at both areas to try and get funding. And as the project continues, depending on, you know, the federal government said, hey, we know there's an internet problem and we need to fix this, but they never put any money out to do anything. The state has done a little bit, and there's funding coming out of the state. So it's a matter of, as this project goes, it's not one and done. As this project moves forward, you continue to look to see what grants become available for the broadband and the internet to try and take and write the grants for those to get that funding too. So the more grant funding we can get, the less money that we have to put out. It was like when we did the water line project to the jail to get that infrastructure in. You know, the original cost was like, you know, we were looking at $1.2 million. As grants became available, things started coming in, you know, our costs got reduced down, you know, to less than half that. So, you know, we've been very fortunate to get grants where we can. Now, a lot of these grants, you know, we get going around people and trying to get it that way, but we do what we have to get the grants as commissioners. So every dollar we get, one less dollar you gotta pay as a taxpayer. Yes, Bill?
I'm not speaking on behalf of Farm Bureau today in this, because Mary Ann asked me a question a few months ago whether we have policy on gerrymandering, and we don't. But I'm on the county policy committee, so I'll try to get it on this coming year. But the earliest that can happen is November, when they have the state committee meeting. So hopefully we'll get something out of Farm Bureau as well.
That'd be good.
Anything else?
Could I just add one thing?
Yeah.
Do I have to stand up? I just want to add that Susquehanna County's Resource Day this year will be Saturday, March 24th. It will be at the Mountain View School campus, and it will run from 9 in the morning until 1 o'clock. And it will entail answering questions like what transportation services are available in the county, where do I go for behavioral health services, how do I get alerts to emergencies happening in the county, and many, many more things. And our K-9 unit will be there and do a demonstration at 10:30 in the morning. So I just wanted to get that out there. Okay? Thank
I
you.
just want to say thank you to the commissioners for
Yes.
hearing us out.
Well, thank you for
Thank
coming,
you.
and thank
Thank
you
you
for
for
having
hearing
the
us out.
passion to do this, and by all means, as I keep saying over and over again, the most powerful voice in this county is the voice of the people. So the more people you can get moving behind you, the more people you can get involved, the more people will take a notice of you and say, oh, we need to pay attention.
Fortunately, I'm retired, so I can come here at 9 o'clock in the morning. But not everybody can.
And I understand, and it's not just about coming to this meeting, it's about having that public voice out in the public and talking to the senators and the House of Representatives and making sure they're hearing from all the people. You know, everybody that you know should be calling every senator, every House of Representative, saying, you know, you guys need to get on board with this, you need to get this done. And, you know, I know your numbers are growing, you're doing a great job with the group that you have, and I commend you for that. I think that's quite remarkable,
Thank
the
you.
success that you've had, so congratulations.
And I
on that.
agree with that, thank you for hearing us out, and.
Absolutely.
Our biggest problem is the
You
time.
know, and I'm
Yeah,
disappointed you
the
wouldn't sit
timetable.
with your wife, but that's okay. Obviously, you're gonna have to sit next to her going home, so. So thank you all again for coming, we'll review the information and then we'll go from there.
I'll make a
Thank
motion
you.
to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
We
you.
are adjourned.